This isn't just a story about water. It's about power, who holds it, who steals it, and who stands up when everything's at stake. I came home from war hoping for peace, but instead found a neighborhood ruled by a homeowners association, president drunk on control. All over a creek they tried to bury and forget. They called me a threat, a radical, even a domestic terrorist. Why? Because I dared to unlock a spillway my father built to return water to the land they tried to steal. Narrator VO. This is the story of a soldier who became a guardian of the watershed, a community that refused to be silenced, and a fight that turned into a movement. Because justice, like water, always finds its way, no matter how many walls they build. Welcome to Willow Creek, where one man's stand turned into a victory. For everyone. They say some wars never end, they just change battlefields. For me, that battlefield wasn't across an ocean or in some foreign desert. It was right here on the land my father once farmed, beside the creek that used to sing through our valley, a place called Willow Creek. I came home from deployment hoping to rebuild a quiet life, but peace. That was stolen, not by an enemy, with a rifle, but by something far more entitled, a corrupt homeowners association, and the people hiding behind its rules. They said my land was undeveloped, that the water running through it was a drainage easement, that I had no right to restore a stream that had flowed freely for generations. What they didn't know was that this land wasn't just mine. It was part of a community, a history, and I wasn't about to let that history be erased by boardroom tyrants with cement contracts and political favors. The fight started the day I opened the old spillway my father welded shut back in '78. The rusted gate moaned as I turned the wheel. And then, water, pure, clear, and relentless like justice. The HOA president, Maggie Blackthorne, showed up within hours. Sunglasses, clipboard, and 3 private security guys who looked like they hadn't passed basic de-escalation training. She said I was violating multiple ordinances, that the creek belonged to the HOA. She even threatened to fine me $5,000 a day until I resealed the illegal water feature. I laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was pathetic. This woman thought she could gatekeep nature. The truth was harder to ignore. Downstream, crops were dying, wells were empty. Entire families, third-generation farmers, were selling off land to survive. And all the while, that creek, that lifeline, sat dammed behind HOA fences, diverted to artificial ponds for million-dollar homes that had never cared about the valley until it became profitable. But something else flowed through this community. Not just water, but memory, anger, and resolve. The day I opened that spillway, it didn't just free the creek. It woke the town. Neighbors who hadn't spoken in years knocked on each other's doors. The local diner turned into a strategy room. High schoolers started filming drone footage for evidence. And I realized something. I might have started this, but I wouldn't have to finish it alone. My dad used to say, "You can't own water, son. You can only borrow it from the next generation." Those words stuck with me, especially now, when the very people sworn to protect our homes were selling our future 1 acre at a time. But here's the thing about water, it remembers. It finds its way. So do people. And when they push too hard, when they steal what doesn't belong to them, sometimes, the only way to stop the flood is to become one. This is the story of how we turned the creek back on, and how a stolen stream became the spark for a movement no one saw coming. The morning after I opened the spillway, the HOA sent their first official letter, certified mail, legal jargon. They called it an unauthorized hydrological disruption. I called it restoring nature. They threatened me with fines, lawsuits, and environmental penalties. Ironic, considering they were the ones draining the creek to water luxury lawns. But I wasn't intimidated, because I had something they didn't: the truth, and a community that had finally woken up. That same day, I met Miguel Ortega, third-generation farmer. His family lost 2 harvests in a row because of the dried-out creek. He showed me a faded photo of his father knee-deep in water with a basket of squash. "That used to be us," he said, voice cracking. "Now we're just watching dust blow." It wasn't just him. Mrs. Chin down the road had abandoned her vegetable garden. The high school's environmental club shut down when the pond dried up. Even the local wildlife had vanished. Frogs, ducks, birds. Gone. What the HOA did wasn't just inconvenient. It was theft. From every living thing that once relied on that water. I started digging. Old land surveys, easement documents from the 1960s, a forgotten county archive that showed clear as daylight that the creek was never under HOA jurisdiction. They'd built their power on a lie no one questioned, until now. Miguel brought in others, farmers, teachers, even to former city inspectors who'd quietly retired after HOA harassment. They remembered seeing construction violations and ignored runoff reports. One even had photocopies. That's when Amanda showed up. She was a water rights attorney who'd heard about our story through a friend at the state university. Sharp mind, sharper wit, and she had one sentence that changed everything. If they're blocking a natural waterway without a permit, they're violating federal law. We started documenting daily flow rates, water temperature, drainage footage, time-stamped drone Visuals showing exactly how the HOA diverted the stream into man-made detention ponds behind their model homes. Amanda prepped the legal strategy. Miguel organized the community. I focused on the land. We called it the Willow Creek Restoration Project. A fancy name for a simple idea. Put the water back where it belongs. That night, I stood by the flowing creek and felt something I hadn't felt in years. Purpose, not just revenge, not anger, but the quiet certainty that we were on the right side of history. But Maggie and her HOA weren't going to back down, not quietly, not without a fight, and I was ready, because this wasn't just about me anymore. It was about all of us, and the water. It was just getting started. I didn't have a choice. They'd crossed the line when they came onto my land. You don't threaten my son. You don't mess with a ranger's family and expect to walk away. Called my lawyer first. She's smart, tough, and knows land law like the back of her hand. I laid everything out, photos of the fake citations, the videos of the break-in, even Logan's injuries. She was furious. Told me we weren't just looking at trespassing anymore. This was coordinated harassment, possibly criminal conspiracy under state law. Then I went to work. Real work. I started documenting everything: trail cam footage, timestamps, license plates. I installed a full perimeter surveillance system with motion detection. Logan helped me dig in. He's a good kid. Smart, brave. He blamed himself. But I told him, this is not on you. It's on them. That night, while Logan was asleep, I walked the property. The air was still heavy. I remembered nights like this overseas, quiet before everything explodes. And I knew it wasn't over. They'd be back. But next time, I'd be ready. The next morning, I filed for a restraining order. My lawyer walked it straight to the judge. We didn't name Cheryl Ross as president of anything because legally she wasn't. We named her as a private citizen trespassing and threatening a minor. The court granted it, served by a sheriff's deputy. First thing, she didn't take it well. That afternoon, someone dumped a load of broken concrete right across my driveway. No note, no explanation, just a message. Logan stared at it like it was a puzzle. I knew what it was, escalation, but I wasn't playing that game. Not on their terms. I called the county road commissioner, showed them drone footage. Turns out, the dump was illegal, violated for different municipal codes. The county sent a crew, fined the contractor, and made Cheryl pay the removal fee. That stung. Still, she didn't stop. That weekend, her so-called compliance team showed up. Again, this time, in matching jackets with a fake HOA logo stitched on. They tried to block the creek with sandbags, claiming it was eroding their property line. Logan filmed the whole thing, and me. I called the EPA. 2 days later, a federal environmental inspector pulled up in a white SUV, clipboard in hand, real badge, real authority. Cheryl came strutting out of her house, waving her homemade ID badge like it meant something. The inspector barely looked at her. Instead, he walked the entire creek with me and Logan, took water samples, measured the altered flow, documented the sandbags, the erosion, and the illegal blockages. He asked one question: did you alter this creek in any way? No, I said, but I know who did. He nodded, took the footage Logan shot, and made a few calls. By sundown, 2 EPA agents and a county hydrologist had declared the damming effort a violation of the Clean Water Act. The sandbags were ordered removed immediately. And Cheryl, she was handed a cease and desist letter on her front porch. No bluster this time, just a pale face and shaking hands. Logan high-fived me as the agents packed up. Dad, he said, are we winning? I looked out at the creek, flowing free again. For now, I said, but this isn't over. The next week, Logan got a call from the sheriff's office. They wanted him to come in for questioning alone, something about disturbing the peace during the footage he recorded. He looked at me nervous. Dad, am I in trouble? No, I said firmly. They're trying to intimidate us. But Logan insisted on going. If I run now, they'll say we're hiding something. So I followed in my truck, waited outside while he went in. 30 minutes later, he came out with a smirk. They asked about the video, wanted to know if I edited anything or added effects. I told them I used a free editing app, but the footage was real. What did they say? They said Cheryl claims I manipulated the scene to frame her for environmental damage. I sighed. Of course she did. That night, someone threw eggs at our windows. Again, then, a rock. I called the sheriff. No units available right now, the deputy said. Figures, so I did what I should have done long ago. I installed a camera system around the property and reinforced the floodlights. The next night, the footage caught Cheryl's husband Dre creeping through the trees with a can of red spray paint. He wrote, "Go home," across our fence. I didn't call the sheriff. This time, I posted the footage online. Within 12 hours, the clip had over 40,000 views. By sundown, the local news van was outside, and Cheryl, she wasn't waving her HOA badge anymore. She was ducking behind her curtains. By the end of that week, my inbox was flooded. Environmental groups, veterans organizations, even law students offered help. Turns out, what happened to us wasn't just personal, it struck a nerve nationwide. Amanda called me the next morning. Her voice was calm but charged. You've got momentum now. I can help you take it federal. She explained that what Cheryl and her fake HOA did, illegally diverting water, falsifying documents, harassment that wasn't just civil, it might fall under federal RICO statutes. If we could prove a pattern of organized abuse for financial gain? I thought RICO was for mobsters. It is, she replied. And sometimes, corrupt HOAs act just like them. So we started gathering more. Miguel came forward with signed letters. Cheryl had pressured neighbors into signing statements that weren't true but were used to justify HOA actions. A whistleblower from the local water utility handed over internal emails about unusually high diversion rates near our property matching the dates we lost. Creekflow. Amanda built a file, a thick, damning one. Meanwhile, Cheryl tried one last power move. She called a neighborhood meeting and accused me and Logan of being violent, troublemakers and internet frauds. That backfired. Half the community walked out. Some even asked me if they could join whatever we were planning. That's when I realized this wasn't just about my creek anymore. This was a movement. Within days, Amanda submitted our RICO complaint to the U.S. Attorney's Office. The evidence: we had financial records, fake citations, utility corruption, and the HOA's forged bylaws formed a solid foundation. We weren't just alleging bad behavior, we were exposing a system built on fraud. Then, something unexpected happened. A federal agent showed up at my farm. Not in a suit, but in jeans and boots. "Mr. Clean," he said, flashing a badge. "We've been watching Cheryl Ross for months. Looks like you just gave us what we needed." It turned out Cheryl's operation wasn't just one HOA gone rogue. She was involved in multiple shell HOAs across the state, targeting rural properties near new developments. Her playbook: buy off city inspectors, declare fake jurisdiction, then hit landowners with fees and threats until they caved or sold cheap. I stood there, stunned. "You mean this was a business? A very profitable one?" He nodded. "Until now." By the weekend, federal warrants were issued. Agents raided Cheryl's office and seized her servers, while state officials suspended all pending permits related to her construction company. The HOA signs came down overnight. Logan and I watched them dismantle the fake checkpoint by the old oak tree. He looked up at me and said, "We got our home back." I placed a hand on his shoulder. "We got everyone's home back." But the story wasn't over yet. Not by a long shot. The news spread like wildfire. Local channels picked up the story. First fake HOA scam busted in federal raid. Then regional media followed, calling it the largest HOA fraud case in state history. But it didn't stop there. National outlets picked it up within 48 hours. I was getting interview requests from networks I'd only ever watched on TV, but I didn't care about fame. I cared about what happened next. Cheryl Ross was arrested and denied bail after prosecutors called her a serial land predator. The feds filed RICO charges, not just against her, but against several of her co-conspirators, developers, county officials, even a local judge who'd signed off on falsified easements. Amanda stood beside me as the charges were read. Her legal research had formed the backbone of the case. Miguel showed up to holding his youngest daughter, tears in his eyes. "They're going to make it right, aren't they?" he asked. I nodded. For every family they tried to break, the fake fines were reversed. Fraudulent liens were nullified. A restitution fund was set up for every homeowner affected by the scam. But my favorite moment? Seeing the workers remove the illegal dam Cheryl's company had built across Willow Creek. It was like the land itself was exhaling free at last, as the water flowed again. Crystal clear and cold. Logan skipped a stone across the surface. "That's for Grandpa," he whispered, and I couldn't have said it better myself. As Rick Thornwell was led away in handcuffs by federal agents, and financial investigators swarmed the courthouse with fresh warrants, Maggie stood frozen on the courthouse steps. Cameras flashed, reporters shouted questions. With nowhere to hide, she simply pushed past the crowd and sped off in her BMW, probably already on the phone with movers. The cheering outside wasn't for her. It was for justice, farmers, environmentalists, town residents. They all gathered to witness something rare, truth flowing freely, like a creek finally unblocked. Amanda held a press conference on the steps, announcing the full scope of the federal RICO case. Miguel stood by her side, thanking me on behalf of every family that had suffered. When it was my turn to speak, I kept it simple. This was never about revenge. It was about doing what's right for the land and the people who depend on it. 6 months later, the water ran as clear as the justice that followed. Rick pled guilty to conspiracy and was sentenced to 3 years in federal prison. Maggie was hit with $8.7 million in civil penalties. She filed bankruptcy faster than water through an open spillway. The construction company, fined $12 million by the EPA and banned from future federal contracts. The fake HOA gone for good. Replaced it with a real community association, one that prioritized sustainability over control. My land, once targeted and undervalued, was now worth $1.2 million, thanks to a federal environmental designation and that $340,000 settlement from the insurance fraud case. I used it to buy Miguel's family farm back at auction, then handed it right back to him. Environmental restoration doesn't just heal land, it heals people. And it boosts property value better than any gated community ever could. Willow Creek, once buried and silenced, now flowed freely. On with it came new life. Kayakers glided along the water. Birdwatchers spotted rare species. Fishermen pulled in trout where cement was once planned. Mrs. Chin's garden. It became a model site for sustainable farming. 3 farms downstream reported their best harvests. In a decade, even the local diner transformed it, became headquarters for the Willow Creek Restoration Association, where activists and farmers planned their next battles against corporate theft. The success exceeded every expectation. Protected species returned. Wetlands revived. Texas Parks and Wildlife even designated the creek as a critical wildlife corridor. The Army Corps of Engineers added my spillway design to their national training materials, and me, I found a piece I never realized I needed. I rebuilt Pop's old farmhouse using reclaimed wood and sustainable methods. Sarah moved back from California to help run our growing agritourism business. Amanda and I, well, let's just say you build a strong bond. When you fight environmental crime together, we created the Pops Morrison Environmental Scholarship for rural students. Miguel's daughter Maria was the first to receive it. She's now studying environmental engineering at UT Austin, determined to protect Texas watersheds from the next Maggie. Every year, we celebrate Creek Dye's music, food, education, and support. For veterans and water defenders, proceeds go to a legal fund that's already helped 6 other communities fight back. But my favorite sight? Kids splashing in the creek where McMansions were supposed to rise. Their laughter echoing through trees. We saved. I bring a jar of that water to Pop's grave every Sunday, just like he used to. The creek's singing again, I whisper. And it always will. Thanks to the Willow Creek Conservation Trust, development rights for the entire watershed are permanently protected. No corporation can ever touch it again. But the story didn't end there. Inspired by our case, federal prosecutors took down Maggie's original Houston HOA under RICO. 147 families across 3 states launched their own lawsuits and won. What began as one man's stand became a national movement for environmental justice. Now, each evening, I sit on my porch and watch the creek flow exactly where it belongs. And I remember some fights are worth everything, especially when you don't fight alone. If you're battling HOA corruption, land theft, or environmental abuse, don't give up. Document everything. Find your allies. The law is stronger than you think, and so is your community. Hit subscribe. If you want more stories about people who stood up, fought back, and won. Next week, I'll tell you how my neighbor stopped the city from seizing her solar farm by cutting power to City Hall during the mayor's wedding, but that's a story about a different kind of power. For now, just know this: water finds a way, justice finds a way, and when communities rise together, they win together. Willow Creek flows free, y'all, and it always will.